Good afternoon. My name is Eve Irvine. I'm the police chief of the Manhattan Beach Police Department. I want to welcome you all to the 43rd Annual Medal of Valor ceremony. And on behalf of the South Bay Police and Fire Memorial Foundation and the South Bay Medal of Valor Committee, thank you for your attendance. I know you're all so very busy, and it's great to see such wonderful support from you all. In public safety profession, chaos and action are commonplace because many of these heroic acts go unnoticed in the normal performance of public safety duties. This Medal of Valor Awards program is intended to identify in public and recognize the outstanding efforts of the South Bay's police and fire departments. The ceremony by no means takes away from the outstanding efforts of the South Bay agencies and what they exhibit every single day. I have the pleasure, I think, of being the master of ceremonies for today's event, and it's a great pleasure to see you all here today. The opening ceremony is going to consist of 4 parts. The presentation of colors will be performed by a combined color guard of the El Segundo Police Department, the Manhattan Beach Police Department, the Redondo Beach Police Department, and the Torrance Fire and Police Departments. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Sergeant Gilbert Sanchez from the Hawthorne Police Department. And Sergeant Sanchez, by the way, is a 2004 Medal of Valor Award recipient. The national anthem will be sung by Latrice McLaughlin. She's from the Connecticut Federal Credit Union, and she's sung for us for the last several years, and she's got a beautiful voice. The invocation will be given by Lieutenant Ryan Small of the Manhattan Beach Police Department. Upon completion of our ceremonies, we'll continue on with the ceremony, but what I would like for you all to do is please stand and remain standing until the end of the opening ceremonies.
Ready, post. Color. Ready, dress. Ready, 2. Uniform personnel, present arms.
Non-sworn uniformed personnel, please place your right hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Uniform personnel, order, arms. Ready, face.
As we come to celebrate these men and women of valor, let us never forget those who gave the ultimate sacrifice in losing their lives during tragic events while offering their service of protection. We continue to offer our heartfelt condolences to their families and friends. And although there are many faiths and religious beliefs and customs among us, I share this blessing with you through prayer. Let us pray. Dear Lord, we thank you for blessing us with this opportunity to share as a community of service the memory of the many innocent lives lost, those brave peacemakers who gave the ultimate sacrifice in their service for your people, as we celebrate those who continue to fight for peace in this world. We ask that you grant peace over the lives of their families and friends as they have sweet memories of their loved ones, but also providing them with wisdom and understanding that their labor was not in vain. For those we celebrate and honor today for their acts of bravery and heroism, we thank you, O God, for keeping them safe and alert and watchful from the enemy that's on the prowl as a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour in their quest to steal and to kill and to destroy. But we thank you for the courage of our public safety personnel, whether they be police or firemen and women, fighting to protect life, liberty, and the property of others. Now we ask that you would bless this food that we're about to receive. Let it be nourishment to our bodies and good to the taste buds. This we ask in your marvelous and your wonderful name. Amen.
You may be seated. If one more person tells me to stand up, I'm going to strangle them. I promise you I'm standing. Yeah, I heard that. So this event could not become a reality if it were not for 4 wonder women of this Medal of Valor Committee. Thank you for your contribution on producing this monumental event. Please stand when your name is called. Sherry Kramer, Continental Development Corporation. Jill Mendoza, Manhattan Beach Police Department. Molly Reichel, South Bay Police Fire Memorial Foundation Assistant. And Margie Randall, El Segundo Police Department. Ladies, you are amazing, and once again, you've pulled off an amazing event. Thank you for making my job a whole lot easier. So let me give you a little bit of history. The South Bay Medal of Valor was created in 1974 when a group of citizens came up with the idea of recognizing heroic efforts for public safety personnel. It was interesting and very sad at some of the events that had gone on, and no one had ever been recognized, and so this committee got together. The Citizen Committee got together in which to do that. The first Medal of Valor occurred on March 20th, 1975. Since 1975, there have been over 500 awards presented to our heroes. This year is the 3rd time that the South Bay Medal of Valor ceremony is being hosted by the South Bay Police Fire Memorial Foundation. The previous 40 lunches were organized and hosted by the South Bay Chambers of Commerce. You guys are a hard act to follow, but thank you all for all of your efforts for those 40 years. So let me tell you a little bit about the South Bay Police Fire Memorial. The South Bay Police Fire Memorial Foundation was created in 1994 after tragic events occurred where 2 police officers were killed in the line of duty from the Palos Verdes Estates Police Department. The South Bay Police Fire Memorial Foundation is an organization dedicated to providing financial support to families of fallen or disabled police and fire personnel from the 9 South Bay cities that have their own independent police and fire agencies. The foundation includes the cities of El Segundo, Gardena, Hawthorne, Hermosa Beach, Inglewood, Manhattan Beach, Palos Verdes Estates, Redondo Beach, and Torrance. Department representatives, citizens, and businesses from these cities form the nucleus of this extraordinary cooperative effort to help South Bay men and women who put their lives on the line for us each and every day. The Foundation's vision includes fundraising events that are used to create a solid financial base to provide support for police officers, firefighters, and their families when they find themselves in unexpected time of need. The Foundation is funded solely by private and corporate donations. No public funds are used. For further information, please refer to the brochures on your tables, and if you'll also notice, you'll have a very lovely coaster that has the logo of the South Bay Police Fire Memorial. At this time, I would like all of the Foundation board members to please stand to be recognized, and thank you for your countless efforts and hours of ensuring the Foundation's success. So there are a few people I'd like to introduce today, and they're alphabetized by city, so I'm not playing favorites. Nobody gets to get their feelings hurt. Okay. Please stand as your name is called, and also please hold your applause until the end. From the city of El Segundo, Mayor Suzanne Fuentes, Police Chief Mitch Tavera. Are you guys here? You know you're here. There you are, thank you. Where's Mitch? We've lost Mitch again? Of course, of course. Keep going, got it, all right. From the city of Gardena, Mayor Tasha Serta and Police Chief Ed Medrano. From the city of Hawthorne, Mayor Alex Vargas and Police Chief Robert Fager. From the city of Hermosa Beach, Mayor Justin Massey, Fire Chief Pete Bonanno, and Police Chief Sharon Papa. From the city of Inglewood, Police Captain Ed Rydens Jr. From the city of Manhattan Beach, Mayor David Lesser, Fire Chief Robert Espinosa, and yours truly, Police Chief Eve Irvine. I paid them to do that. From the city of Palos Verdes Estates, Mayor Pro Tem Betty Lynn Peterson. From the city of Redondo Beach, Police Chief Keith Kaufman and Fire Chief Robert Metzger. From the city of Torrance, Mayor Pat Fury, Police Chief Mark Matsuda, and Deputy Fire Chief David Dumas. I know that there is so much support from all of our council members and elected officials, so at this time, I would like to ask all of our council member and elected officials from each of the 9 South Bay cities to stand and be recognized, and thank you for your support. We also have several people here today representing our local elected officials. From Senator Benjamin Allen's office, James Reyna. From Senator Stephen Bradford's office, Nital Patel. From Assemblyman Al Murtzachi's office, Cody Bridges. Congressman Ted Lieu's office, Joey Apodaco. And from Supervisor Janice Hahn's office, Mark Warnick and Matt Johnson. Thank you for being here. In your program is a list of companies, organizations, and individuals who have purchased tables for this year's ceremony. On behalf of the South Bay Police and Fire Chiefs, South Bay Medal of Valor, and the South Bay Police Fire Memorial Foundation, thank you for your personal commitment, and thank you so much for your involvement and support. We also have several corporate sponsors that have made additional financial contributions. They are Advanced Electronics, Aerospace Corporation, who are also responsible for the design and printing of all of our materials, including the programs. American Honda, Chevron USA, Continental Development Corporation, the Daily Breeze, Connecticut Federal Union, Skechers, SpaceX, and Sunrider International. The Torrance Marriott Hotel also continues to be such a wonderful host. Let's give all of these people a round of applause. Thanks to Hawthorne Cable for being here today and recording this event. Also, I want to thank KTLA Channel 5 News, who will be telecasting live with us on the 1 p.m. broadcast. So put your lipstick on, fix your ties, make sure you don't have any food in your teeth, and if you've called in sick for work or you shouldn't be here, you might want to leave. I also want to recognize the volunteers today for your involvement and hard work for allowing us, as the Medal of Valor Committee, to honor today's recipients. Also with us is our guest presenter for many years, Glenn Walker of the KTLA News, who I look forward to introducing later in the program. Thank you, and please enjoy your lunch. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. I hope your lunch was good, and we're about ready to start the program. So earlier, I introduced, and he wasn't here, Mitch Tavera, the chief from El Segundo, and several of you said he's either sleeping in the restroom or whatever the case might be, but he's actually right there, and I would like him to stand because he is retiring as of this week. And just a little bit about Mitch, even though he appears to be young looking, I think he's been in law enforcement about, 112 years. So ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I would like to ask all of the former recipients of the South Bay Medal of Valor, Distinguished Service Award, Sustained Superiority Award, and the Life Saving Awards to please stand up and be recognized. Thank you for your heroism in protecting and serving the countless lives of people within the communities that you serve. Today we're recognizing 24 individuals, all heroes in their own right, for the Medal of Valor, the Distinguished Service Award, and the Life Saving Award. Each of these were for the period from January 1st, 2016 through December 31st, 2016. Let me just explain a little bit of what each of the awards are and their criterion. The Life Saving Award is awarded to firefighters or police officers assigned to one of the 9 South Bay cities. This award provides recognition for performing a distinct and successful life-saving act of another human being under non-standard circumstances, which means not in the normal everyday scope of service. The criterion for consideration is the recipient had awareness of the seriousness of the situation, the events leading to the act were not carelessly caused by the recipient, thus necessitating the act was purposefully done, there was a strong possibility the person would have died if the action had not been taken, and the act was not foolhardily. The Distinguished Service Award is awarded to firefighters or police officers, again in the 9 South Bay cities. The award recognizes efforts that exemplify the finest standards of police fire departments, yet do not rise to the level of Medal of Valor. The Medal of Valor is awarded to police officers and firefighters who distinguish themselves by extraordinary valor above and beyond the call of duty. These public safety individuals must have exhibited extraordinary courage, heroism, or other meritorious actions involving extreme personal risk, and where the act is deemed above and beyond the call of duty. The criterion for consideration is recognition for extraordinary acts of valor above and beyond the call of duty. The extraordinary is defined as going above what is ordinary, what is usual, and it is highly exceptional and noteworthy. Valor is defined as courage or bravery that enables a person that faces great danger. The incident is of acceptable concern to justify the risk. The Medal of Valor Committee receives nominations by the respective South Bay Police Fire Chiefs. The nominations are reviewed by a panel of South Bay Police and Fire Chiefs to ensure that they meet the standards established for each award. A lot goes into the process and preparation for these awards, including requesting proclamations, communications with chiefs, city officials, recipients, coordinating photos, and media management. Many of these incidents of the Medal of Valor have been previously highlighted in the media. We have to order plaques, medals, and numerous other details to make this memorable for those who we are recognizing. So at this point, I would like to introduce Glenn Walker. I'm proud to introduce Glenn Walker. Glenn Walker has been a supporter for the South Bay Police Police and Fire Medal of Valor for many years. A little bit about Glenn. Glenn Walker anchors the KTLA 5 News at 1 and the KTLA 5 News at 3, and his Money Smart reports air several times a week on the KTLA 5 News at 10 and 11. He also appears on the KTLA Morning News reporting the sports news and highlighting on the Jack in the Box sports desk. Glenn joined KTLA in May of 2010 from KCBS TV and KCAL TV, where he co-anchored the weekend news at both stations. Glenn's broadcasting career began while he was still attending Florida State University. After an internship at the Tallahassee's ABC affiliate, he worked as a production assistant at Florida Public Broadcasting for Today in Legislature, where he operated a TV camera in the galleries of the Florida State Senate and House of Representatives. After graduating, Glenn became the weekend sports anchor at that same station in Tallahassee where he interned. He also worked at a liquor store so he could pay for his rent. From there, he went to WJHG-TV in Panama City, Florida, where he was a sports anchor as well as a photographer, editor, and writer. After a short stint at the ABC affiliation in Macon, Georgia, how short was it, I wonder, Glenn was off to WIVB-TV in Buffalo, New York, which is my home state, where he traveled with the NFL's Buffalo Bills and the NHL's Buffalo Sabres, and perfected the art of shoveling snow and scraping ice off of windshields, which there is a lot of in Buffalo, trust me. After nearly 6 years in Buffalo, Glenn headed out west to sunny Southern California to work at Prime Ticket Network. Along with hosting the award-winning Press Box nightly sports show, Glenn also hosted LA Raiders Magazine and College Football Today. In 1990, while working as a Pac-10 sideline reporter, he barely avoided getting trampled by a traveler by the traveling Trojan horse at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. At WNBC-TV in New York City, Glenn started the weekend sports anchor in September of 1995. He then made a successful transition to the news, now serving then as the co-host of the #1 rated Saturday and Sunday Today in New York. He was later promoted to the position of weekend news anchor at WNBC-TV. Glenn co-anchored the WNBC-TV's live breaking news on the coverage of September 11, 2001, for which WNBC won several awards. Glenn came back to Southern California in September of 2002. Glenn has won numerous awards throughout his career, including several Los Angeles Emmys and a New York Emmy. He's received many UPI National and AP New York awards, and for unprecedented 3 years in a row, from 1993 to 1995, he was part of the Best News Anchor team as named by Southern California's sports broadcasters. He has a lovely wife, Jody, and 4 children, and while he roots for FSU Seminoles, the rest of his family roots for USC Trojans, and talk about a house divided there. Glenn recently had members of the South Bay Police Fire Memorial as his guests on the Channel 5 Live News at 3 p.m. to discuss what the South Bay Police Fire Memorial Foundation is all about and to highlight the South Bay Police Medal of Valor Awards. Highlight the South Bay Medal of Valor Awards. Thank you, Glenn, for all of your support, and with that, please welcome Glenn Walker.
Good afternoon. Great to be with you here again. Torrance Lieutenant Bob Watt, the Torrance Police Department, said I had to start the day off with a joke. Bob and I go way back, farther than he and I would either like to admit. I can't think of a joke to tell because the ones I know were all politically incorrect. Half the room would laugh, the other half would walk out. So all I can say is you've got a program on your desk. Open it up to page 1. That's my picture on page 2. That was 40 pounds ago. Come on. You know, much better now. Anyway, let's get started. We're going to start off with the life-saving awards with Torrance Police Detective James Walker, no relation. Please come forward. On August 29th of 2016 at approximately 5:48 p.m., Detective James Walker was working uniform patrol in a marked black and white police unit assigned as 9A36. During this time, Detective Walker and his partner responded to a call for service classified as an attempt suicide at 20,613 Ladine Street in the city of Torrance. While Detective Walker and his partner were en route to the scene, Torrance Police Department communications broadcasted that a 57-year-old male had possibly cut his wrist and neck. The subject was reportedly lying in the bathroom in a very bloody scene. Within minutes, a subsequent radio broadcast advised the subject was now unresponsive and clammy. During the initial investigation, it was determined that the subject and his wife were engaged in an emotionally charged argument earlier in the morning, which likely contributed to his actions of harming himself. Upon arrival, Detective Walker responded directly to the bathroom, where he observed the 57-year-old male subject lying in the bathtub with a gaping wound to the side of his neck. Detective Walker recognized the subject to possibly have a carotid arterial bleed due to the manner in which the blood was profusely spurting out. Detective Walker assessed that the subject was still breathing despite having lost an excessive amount of blood. Noting the subject was in desperate need of immediate medical attention, Detective Walker took immediate action by first removing a knife from the subject's hand to ensure the safety of all who were present, and secondly, utilizing a towel to apply direct pressure to the gaping wound. While addressing the subject's gaping wound, Detective Walker simultaneously brought order to the otherwise chaotic scene. Detective Walker remained calm and requested the subject's wife to exit so assisting officers could better attend to her distress. Personnel from the Torrance Fire Department later arrived on the scene to relieve Detective Walker. The subject was transported to a local hospital for emergency surgery, where he was expected to survive. Shortly after the incident, the subject's wife telephoned the Torrance Police Department to express her gratitude, citing Detective Walker's compassion and kindness. Moreover, the subject's wife expressed how overall she was impressed with Detective Walker. Upon evaluating the seriousness of the situation, there was a high likelihood that the subject would have died had Detective Walker not intervened. By maintaining his composure and incorporating his training, Detective Walker was able to implement appropriate emergency first aid and life-saving measures. Here to present the life-saving award to Torrance Police Detective James Walker is Torrance Police Chief Mark Matsuda. Chief, don't go far. Would Torrance police officers Joshua Satterfield and Christopher Tomzik please come forward? On December 23, 2016, at approximately 3:54 p.m., Officer Joshua Satterfield and Officer Christopher Tomzik were working patrol in a uniform capacity. During this time, they responded to a call for service classified as baby not breathing at the Delamo Fashion Center in the city of Torrance. The following is a summary of events. While both officers were en route to the scene, Torrance Police Department Communications broadcasted that a 4-month-old baby had stopped breathing and was turning blue. It should be noted that the heavy pedestrian/holiday shopping traffic, as well as the lack of clearly distinguishable mall entrances due to the construction/renovations, made it difficult to ascertain the exact location of the emergency. Upon arrival, Officer Satterfield and Officer Tomzik quickly located the infant and observed her to be blue in color and limp. Both officers further noted the infant was not breathing and appeared to be unconscious. Noting the desperate need for immediate medical attention, Officer Tomzik checked the infant's brachial artery for a pulse, at which time Officer Satterfield began chest compressions and rescue breaths. In turn, Officer Tomzik administered chest compressions while tilting the infant's chin in an attempt to clear her airway. Shortly after, the infant began to regain consciousness. Personnel from the Torrance Fire Department later arrived on the scene to relieve both officers. Both Officer Satterfield and Officer Tomzik, with the assistance of several other officers, orchestrated a police escort to assist medical personnel in a safe, expedited transport to a local hospital. The infant was expected to survive. Shortly after the incident, various personnel from the Torrance Fire Department and local hospital commented that Officer Satterfield's and Officer Tomzik's heroic actions undoubtedly saved the life of the infant. Upon evaluating the seriousness of the situation, there was a high likelihood that the infant would have died had Officer Satterfield and Officer Tomzik not intervened. By maintaining their composure and incorporating their training, both officers were able to implement appropriate emergency first aid and life-saving measures. Here to present the Life-Saving Award to Torrance Police Officers Joshua Satterfield and Christopher Tomzik is once again Torrance Police Chief Mark Matsuda. Would Gardena Police Officer Marisol Bazan please come forward? On September 23, 2016, at about 5:15 in the evening, Gardena Police and LA County Fire Department personnel were notified of a medical emergency involving a 13-year-old child at Arthur Johnson Park in Gardena. The child was at the park participating in an after-school program with other children from his nearby charter middle school. The after-school program involved a game of football on the grass field. During the physical activity, the 13-year-old passed out and fell to the ground. Another student immediately called 911 and summoned the paramedics. Hearing the medical aid call on the radio, several officers from Day Shift Patrol responded code 3 to the park. Officer Marisol Bazan was the first emergency responder on the scene. Officer Bazan noticed the patient was not breathing and had no pulse. Officer Bazan immediately began to perform CPR until paramedics from the Los Angeles County Fire Department arrived and relieved her. The patient was transported to a local trauma center where he underwent a treatment and ultimately surgery for a previously undiagnosed heart condition. Both the paramedics who arrived on the scene and the physician who later treated the teenager at the hospital said the teenager would not be alive today if it were not for the life-saving CPR that Officer Bazan performed. Here to present the Life-Saving Award to Gardena Police Officer Marisol Bazan is Gardena Police Chief Edward Medrano. Would Hawthorne Police Officers Francesca Fasulo, Kenneth Craig, Andrew Salcido, and Ryan Boning please come forward? On the Sunday evening of July 17, 2016, around 10:20 p.m., Hawthorne patrol officers responded to an emergency call of a large car-to-car shooting occurring at the intersection of Crenshaw Boulevard and El Segundo Boulevard. Updated reports indicated at least 2 gunshot victims were down in an adjacent parking lot. Upon arriving to the scene, officers began their tactical approaches, sweeping not only the intersection but adjoining commercial properties and lots. Officers Andrew Salcido and Ryan Boning discovered an involved vehicle parked in the front of a barbershop located along Crenshaw Boulevard. The car had numerous bullet holes, gunshot victims still inside of it. Officers broadcasted this update and soon after were joined by Officers Francesca Fasulo and Kenneth Craig. Officer Salcido and Officer Boning opened the front passenger door, observing large amounts of pooled blood both on and surrounding the occupants. The male subject, seated in the front passenger seat, possessed several gunshot wounds alone. These 4 officers went to work to extricate him immediately, cutting away his seat belt and pulling him to a place that he could be better assessed and treated. This victim had bullet wounds to his lower extremities but was critically bleeding from the right arm. Officers Fasulo and Craig held direct pressure on the victim's multiple wounds, while Officer Salcido retrieved a tourniquet from his medical bag. He placed it above the severe arterial bleed, tightening it until the bleeding stopped. Concurrent work by fellow officers allowed for the eventual securement of the scene and the entry of the medical personnel. This victim, as well as others, were ultimately transported to regional trauma centers. Post-assessment showed that Officers Fasulo, Craig, Salcido, and Boning, smart response and life-saving medical interventions played key in the saving of this victim's life. Their actions are in keeping with the finest service traditions of the Hawthorne Police Department to its community and represent the very best of positive acts performed by public safety daily, often unheralded. Here to present the life-saving awards to Hawthorne police officers Francesca Fasulo, Kenneth Craig, Andrew Salcido, and Ryan Boning is Hawthorne Police Chief Robert Fager. Would Hawthorne police officers Michael Murray, Pedro Nambo, and Jonathan Scovold please come forward? On the Sunday morning of February 2nd, 2016, Hawthorne police officers Michael Murray, Pedro Nambo, and Jonathan Scovold responded to the scene of a stabbing victim. Upon arrival, the limited information that they knew was that the victim was stabbed possibly in the upper torso. Officer Nambo immediately grabbed his stat pack from his police unit. Officers located the victim. Quick assessment showed he was complaining of chest pain, had difficulty breathing, tightness in his chest, and a rapid pulse rate. Based on the location of the stab wound and symptomology, Officer Murray cut off the victim's shirt. This now exposed a significant puncture to the victim's left flank area. Without hesitation, the officers went into treatment mode, with Officer Scovold applying a chest seal to the large wound. Commensurate to these duties is public safety. While officers focused on the stabilizing of the victim, they gathered pertinent information as to where the crime occurred and who and where the suspect might be. Los Angeles County Fire soon arrived, taking over care and ultimately transporting the victim to our regional trauma center. Officer Murray, Nambo's, and Scovold's quick response, prompt recognition of the victim's symptoms, and their application of medical measures prevented the ongoing bleed out to the victim. These life-saving interventions and actions are part of the skill sets of Hawthorne police officers and in keeping with the finest traditions of service to the community. It should be recognized that Officer Michael Murray is now a two-time recipient of the South Bay Life-Saving Award. Here to present the Life-Saving Awards to Hawthorne police officers Michael Murray, Pedro Nambo, and Jonathan Scovold is Hawthorne Police Chief Robert Fager.
This is his third time.
That makes three. It's a hat trick. Would Redondo Police Officers Jared Evelo and Timothy McFarland please come forward? On August 28, 2016 at 4:55 p.m., Officers McFarland and Evelo responded to the area of Diamond Street and Catalina Avenue regarding a report of a male cyclist who had fallen off of his bicycle and was having a heart attack. The cyclist's 13-year-old daughter was also standing by at the scene. Officer McFarland arrived immediately and after hearing the call for service. Officer McFarland noticed the cyclist was not breathing and had no pulse, making it apparent that he was dying. McFarland began giving CPR to the unconscious cyclist. Officer Evelo arrived on the scene shortly after and took over CPR. Officer Evelo continued CPR until the arrival of the Redondo Beach Fire Department personnel, who, while Officer Evelo provided CPR, were able to prepare the emergent transport of the patient. The injured man was rushed to Harbor General Hospital, where he received more life-saving emergency care by doctors, and after several days in intensive care, made a full recovery. Captain May from the Redondo Beach Fire Department commended the responding police officers by saying officers started CPR before we got there, and their actions dramatically improved the survivability of the patient. They did an excellent job and also went above and beyond their job descriptions. Also, paramedic Greg Allen commented that the actions of the responding police officers were instrumental in saving the patient's life. He had the best chances because of what was done early in the cardiac arrest, said Allen. Officers McFarland and Evelo performed exceptionally. They operated quickly and were proficient. They performed at a high level, no doubt saving the injured man's life. The patient, a United States military veteran, remains in contact with both officers, and they have all developed a strong bond. Here to present the life-saving awards to Redondo Beach police officers Jared Evelo and Timothy McFarland is Redondo Beach Police Chief Keith Kaufman. Would Manhattan Beach police officers David Gibbons and Teresa Mancaros please come forward? On April 30th, 2016, at approximately 12:53 a.m., Officer Gibbons and Officer Mancaros responded to 11th Street and Manhattan Avenue regarding a victim who was hunched over and bleeding from his head. Officers Gibbons and Mancaros arrived and observed the victim was unconscious and not breathing. In an effort to save the victim's life, Officer Gibbons and Mancaros initiated CPR. Both officers administered chest compressions until the Manhattan Beach Fire Department personnel transported the victim to Little Company of Mary Hospital for further medical treatment. The medical staff at Little Company of Mary Hospital believes the victim suffered a heart attack prior to the officers' arrival. The victim survived for approximately 1 week and unfortunately passed away. The life-saving efforts of Officers Gibbons and Mancaros allowed the family of the victim to be with him for another week of his life. The victim's son called to thank both officers for their life-saving efforts. Here to present the life-saving awards to Manhattan Beach police officers David Gibbons and Teresa Mancaros is Manhattan Beach Police Chief Eve Irvine. Now we'll move on to the Distinguished Service Awards. Would Redondo Beach officers Salvador Garcia, Ryan Harrison, Brian Weiss, and Derek Theuer please come forward, as well as Lieutenant, now Captain, Joseph Hoffman. This is quite a story. On August 2nd, 2016, the Redondo Beach Police Department Special Investigations Unit, SIU, detectives had been conducting surveillance on a known felony suspect identified as Daniel Padilla. Padilla was being sought for having outstanding arrest warrants for a parole violation and being a felon in possession of an assault rifle. Padilla was also wanted for attempting to assault 2 of the Redondo Beach SIU detectives with a deadly weapon in late July of 2016. In that case, when SIU detectives tried to detain Padilla, he drove his vehicle at a high rate of speed at the investigators in an attempt to escape capture. They were able to leap to safety and narrowly escape being struck by Padilla's vehicle. During follow-up investigations, it was learned that Padilla wanted to, quote, shoot it out, unquote, with police, and he viewed a violent interaction with police as a game. Due to his actions, disregard for the public's safety, previous violent encounters with law enforcement, and his intent to escape law enforcement's efforts at all costs, investigators developed a new tactical plan to apprehend Padilla. Investigators formulated a plan to detain Padilla while ensuring the safety of the community using the department's directed enforcement unit. At 9:40 a.m. on August 2nd, 2016, Padilla was observed driving into the Best Western Hotel on Hawthorne Boulevard in Lawndale. As the DEU officers were moving into position to detain Padilla, block his escape routes, and isolate the area from bystanders, Padilla noticed the arrest team. Padilla screeched his tires, accelerated, and reversed the direction of his GMC Yukon. He accelerated to a high rate of speed directly toward Officers Harrison and Garcia's vehicle. Officer Garcia, recognizing the imminent threat of great bodily injury or death to himself and his partner, yelled to Officer Harrison, alerting him to the peril. Officer Harrison, seeing no other option to this rapidly evolving and life-threatening situation, fired his weapon at Padilla from the interior of his police vehicle. The actions of Officers Garcia and Harrison caused Padilla's vehicle to veer away from them. The vehicle swerved toward Officers Theuer and Weiss, approaching police vehicle. Officer Harrison continued to fire his weapon, while Officer Garcia also began firing his duty weapon in attempts to quickly stop Padilla. If not for the swift actions of Officer Garcia at his own personal risk, Officer Harrison would not have been so quickly alerted to the danger and been able to use the level of force to save himself and his partner from the impact of Padilla's vehicle. Padilla was still intent on his escape at any cost and accelerated his vehicle toward an approaching marked police vehicle being driven by Officer Theuer and occupied by Officer Weiss. Both officers observed Padilla's attempt to ram Officer Garcia and Harrison. However, they drove directly toward the impending threat. They saw that Padilla was not slowing down and speeding directly toward the front of their vehicle. Officer Theuer recognized the immediate risk of significant injury or death to him and Officer Weiss and was able to slow their vehicle down enough to avoid a collision while bracing for the crash. Officer Weiss exited the still-moving police vehicle and during this rapidly evolving event realized that there was a possibility of community members in the open parking area and was concerned not only for their safety but the safety of fellow officers. Officer Weiss saw that even though Padilla narrowly missed their patrol vehicle, he was heading at a high rate of speed toward Lieutenant Hoffman's marked patrol vehicle. In another effort to stop Padilla's dangerous escape attempt and in protection of the community's safety and Lieutenant Hoffman's life, Officer Weiss also began to fire his weapon at Padilla. Next, Daniel Padilla directed his deadly aggression toward Lieutenant Hoffman, who was the last law enforcement officer prohibiting this erratic and violent career criminal from further endangering the community. Lieutenant Hoffman had just positioned his vehicle at the apron of the driveway when Padilla accelerated his vehicle and directed it toward Lieutenant Hoffman. He intentionally struck the front of the police vehicle and continued to accelerate forward in an attempt to ram the vehicle out of his way. Lieutenant Hoffman, in an act of bravery and despite injuries sustained from the assault, was able to draw his weapon and fire rounds through the windshield at Daniel Padilla. Lieutenant Hoffman's actions stopped the deadly behavior demonstrated by Padilla. Officers Garcia, Harrison, and Theuer realized that Padilla had been shot and needed immediate medical attention. Even though Padilla's actions toward the police demonstrated a willful attempt to injure or kill them, they swiftly devised a plan to extricate him from the vehicle and provide him first aid. Later, a loaded .45 caliber handgun was located inside of Padilla's vehicle. Lieutenant Hoffman, Officers Garcia, Harrison, and Weiss, and Theuer placed themselves in a significant danger to capture a violent career criminal who had no regard for the safety of the community. In a report from the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office regarding this event, Padilla's use of his vehicle to effectuate his escape posed a substantial and immediate risk of serious physical injury or death to the officers who stood in his way and the lives of innocent bystanders if Padilla had managed to escape. This report also mentioned the actions of these officers were heroic, extraordinary, and stopped a dangerous fleeing felon from posing any further dangers to our community. Here to present the Distinguished Service Awards to Redondo Beach Police Officers Salvador Garcia, Ryan Harrison, Brian Weiss, and Derek Theuer, and Lieutenant, now Captain Joseph Hoffman, is Redondo Beach Police Chief Keith Kaufman. Further evidence that a day off or a day served does not work. Would Redondo Beach Police Sergeant Edward Jackson please come forward? On July 13, 2016, while Sergeant Jackson was assigned to patrol the South Bay Galleria Mall, he was dispatched to assist mall security with a disruptive person inside. The subject, a female transient, was threatening to kill a mall security guard and refused to leave the property. She was seen earlier in the day loitering inside the mall. Upon Sergeant Jackson's arrival, he advised the female she had to leave the mall property. She was argumentative. However, she began to walk toward the exit. Sergeant Jackson walked behind her as she began to descend the escalator from the second floor to the first floor. Sergeant Jackson could hear the female continue to be argumentative while she was leaving the property, but he did not know that she had removed a knife that was hidden on her person, and she had extended the blade. She lunged backward toward Sergeant Jackson and swung the knife toward his neck. Sergeant Jackson was standing in a guarded position, which only allowed for the knife's blade to scratch his neck. He was able to pull the female suspect to the ground, unarm her, and take her into custody. Later, during a Miranda statement, the female suspect admitted she had hidden the knife and was waiting to be outside the mall before attacking and trying to kill Sergeant Jackson. The district attorney's office filed charges on the female for attempting to kill a police officer. This situation could have very easily been a deadly incident for both Sergeant Jackson and the female if not for the swiftness, courage, and exceptional tactics and martial arts training that Sergeant Jackson has dedicated himself to. Here to present the Distinguished Service Award to Redondo Beach Police Sergeant Edward Jackson is Redondo Beach Police Chief Keith Kaufman. Would Redondo Beach Harbor Patrol Officer David Poirier please come forward? Weren't you here last year? Yeah. When I first got the script in the email, I'm going like, this is last year's. Oh, no, it's not. Okay. On the evening of February 24, 2016, at approximately 11:15 p.m. hours, Harbor Patrol Officer David Poirier responded to the call for help on the breakwater wall protecting King Harbor. 4 civilians have been swept off the wall by a series of high waves, causing them to tumble down the rock face and into the water. None of the victims could swim. Each was significantly injured, with one already deceased. None of the living victims could assist in their own rescue. High waves continued to the top of the wall and battered the victims as the rescue boat arrived. HPO Poirier entered the water alone and attempted to gain control of the 4 victims through the battering waves while the boat returned to get help. He was able to maneuver the victims into shallower water to await help. As the rescue boat returned, they witnessed a large set of waves top the breakwater wall and wash HPO Poirier and the victims off the rocks and into deeper water. The force of the series of waves submerged all 5. Officer Poirier surfaced, still holding on to the 2 female victims. Third survivor, a male, managed to get to the rocks with some assistance. Poirier somehow managed to get the 2 non-swimming females to the rescue boat where they were removed. The deceased victim was also located and removed from the water, while Officer Poirier returned to the rocks to assist the remaining male survivor. Additional waves were topping the wall, pounding Officer Poirier and his last victim, but Poirier managed to get the final victim to safety. Officer Poirier was so exhausted by these efforts that he needed assistance getting out of the water. Had Officer Poirier not been in the water with the 3 viable victims, each of them would have likely perished. This situation was highly unusual, but it speaks to a dedication of duty that is demonstrated at a high level by Officer Poirier. He trains for these kinds of situations and maintains both his physical condition and his rescue skills in high order. His disregard for his own safety in the face of a life-threatening situation to both himself and the 3 civilians he rescued qualifies him for exceptional recognition. This is the 2nd year in a row for David to be nominated for this recognition, and it is only fitting given the extraordinary efforts he made on behalf of the 3 people who were rescued and the 4th who was humanely recovered. Here to present the South Bay Medal of Valor to Redondo Beach Harbor Patrol Officer David Poirier is Redondo Beach Fire Chief Robert Metzger. So before I call the next Medal of Valor recipient up here, I want to recognize a former recipient. He's a former sergeant with the Hawthorne Police Department. His name is Donald Schrum. In '96, he was awarded the Medal of Valor for his actions in a shootout with a robbery suspect. And then in 2003, he saved a woman's life from a fire. Mr. Schrum, could you stand up for a moment? With that said, would Redondo Beach Police Officer Patrick Schrum please come forward? On February 5th, 2016, Officer Patrick Schrum was dispatched at the 2100 block of Manhattan Beach Boulevard regarding a domestic violence incident between a husband and a wife. This was the second call for help from the residents. The first incident was reported by their young children who were afraid. The officers determined no crime had occurred and the male subject agreed to leave for the evening. Later, at approximately 11:36 p.m., the male returned and had armed himself with a handgun. The argument quickly resumed and the subject's wife called to summon police for help. She informed Redondo Beach officers that the man was armed with a handgun. Officer Schrum realized the potentially deadly situation unfolding and responded to the location quickly. He took a position of concealment while waiting for his backup to arrive. Before an assisting officer arrived, the suspect left the residence and walked to Officer Schrum with his hands inside of his pockets. Despite numerous commands to have the male stop and Officer Schrum's attempts to de-escalate the rapidly evolving situation, the suspect refused to comply. The male suspect produced a handgun from his pocket and began to raise it at Officer Schrum. Officer Schrum was in immediate fear for his safety, as well as the safety of the community. He discharged his firearm, which stopped the male suspect. Upon arrival of assisting officers, the suspect was safely taken into custody, and his weapon was recovered. His courageous and brave response resulted in stopping an armed suspect from committing any further acts of violence or posing any further danger to the community. Here to present the South Bay Medal of Valor to Redondo Beach Police Officer Patrick Schrum is Redondo Beach Police Chief Keith Kaufman. Would Hawthorne Police Sergeant Joel Romero and Police Officer Lawrence Williams please come forward? As a routinely busy Saturday afternoon wound down on November 19, 2016, around 4:30 p.m., Hawthorne Police Department Sergeant Joel Romero and Officer Lawrence Williams received a disturbance call at the Public Storage Commercial Business located along Rosecrans Avenue in the city of Hawthorne. An irate customer was refusing to leave the premises, and employees now wanted police assistance in dealing with the situation. Sergeant Romero and Officer Williams responded and arrived at the storage facility, speaking with employees. They were then escorted upstairs and directed to where the involved customer storage unit and the subject himself was waiting. Sergeant Romero and Officer Williams approached the storage unit to make contact with the suspect. The suspect exited his small storage unit. Unfortunately, he did so holding a machete in his hand. Officers drew their service pistols, giving clear commands for the suspect to put the machete down. The suspect defied and refused, instead stepping back into the storage unit, where he then partially rolled down the unit's exterior metal door. Sergeant Romero and Officer Williams then heard a very distinct sound of a semi-automatic pistol being racked to chamber a cartridge. It should be noted that the location where this was occurring is on the second floor of the business, comprised of long hallways with dozens of storage units on each side, closed by metal roll-up doors. There are literally no areas to seek cover behind until you reach the cross aisle. Without any further warning, the suspect's hand emerged from his unit, armed now with a semi-automatic Glock 9mm handgun. He opened fire upon Sergeant Romero and Officer Williams, who immediately began to return fire and create distance between them by making it back to the closest cross aisle. Officers barely made it to that aisle as the next volley of gunfire erupted from the suspect. The suspect shot as he ran in an opposite direction but was now out of sight. In this exchange, Officer Larry Williams was struck by one of the gunman's bullets. The bullet shattered his femur, causing Officer Williams to collapse to the ground. Now unable to stand and needing to quickly assess his injury, Sergeant Romero instinctively took a guard position over Officer Williams. With the suspect now out of their sight and the hallways all capable of leading back to one another, the officers each covered down a different direction with their pistols in fear that the suspect was going to circle around and attack once again. During this unimaginably dangerous time, Sergeant Romero remained calm and provided clear radio transmissions to the responding backup officers. He coherently advised that the suspect was still armed and last seen running northbound through the upper floors of the business. Hawthorne Police Department's helicopter, Air 55, was first to arrive on scene and immediately began coordinating the efforts of ground units. Upon arrival, Hawthorne officers making entry to the grounds observed that the armed suspect was locked inside the middle lower lobby area. The 6'4" suspect had his arms outstretched with the machete in one hand and the handgun in the other. During tense moments, responding officers took up direct tactical positions to contain and neutralize the suspect. The suspect, realizing this, eventually put his weapons on the ground and submitted. Officers gained entry into the lobby area, taking the suspect into custody. Hawthorne officers, supported in mutual aid by officers and deputies from numerous neighboring agencies, contained the lower level. A separate team went directly to the aid of Officer Williams and Sergeant Romero on the second floor. Once Sergeant Romero and Officer Williams were located and the scene was rendered safe, LA County Fire Department personnel tended to the injured officers. Officer Williams treated and transported to our regional trauma center. He suffered a shattered femur, which to date has required 2 surgeries and related skin grafts to allow healing and recovery. Sergeant Joel Romero suffered a large laceration on his arm during the gunfight, requiring separate transport and treatment to an area hospital. Officer Larry Williams is on his road to recovery as he continues to grow stronger each day while still on a long road to final recovery. Sergeant Joel Romero has since returned back to work as a field supervisor. Sergeant Romero and Officer Williams acted bravely in the face of life-threatening danger and a gunfire exchange of over 50 bullets. These men remained calm, focused, and applied sound tactical decisions to protect each other, nearby employees and patrons, and our community at large. This incident clearly showcases that law enforcement officers can be faced with what they can be faced with at a moment's notice. Sergeant Romero and Officer Williams' actions are in keeping with the finest acts of heroism and service traditions of the Hawthorne Police Department and embody the commitment to the Hawthorne community and beyond. Here to present the South Bay Medal of Valor to Hawthorne Police Sergeant Joel Romero and Police Officer Lawrence Williams is Hawthorne Police Chief Robert Fager. And that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes the awards presentation part of the program. I got to get over here and get on TV, so thanks for having me once again.
Ladies and gentlemen, your public safety heroes of 2016.